Hello everyone, it's Richard Lewis here again with another video. Today talking about a topic that I've consistently documented from its inception to where we are today. We're going to be talking about Overwatch League again, but this time we're going to be talking about its viewership figures and some of the ways that the Overwatch League is utilizing to essentially obfuscate the very obvious fact that the viewership numbers are in decline. Now, I know that some of you don't follow the league if you follow my channel, but they did just have their finals, their world finals, and San Francisco Shock won. There was much rejoicing. It was all over the Twitter timeline. You know how it is. But there was a weird kind of headline that came, and it caught my eye, and I made a tweet, and I think some people have misinterpreted that tweet. So let's just jump in. And you can see I tweeted that just in case you've ever wondered why the Overwatch League started using the AMA metric, it should become clear after looking at these three images. The first two compare the numbers from the past two playoff events. The third is today's headline. And the headline, as you can see, and we'll get into this in a second, is Overwatch League Grand Final viewership up 38% year over year. Now, AMA is average minute audience, and it's meant to be this new shiny metric that all the big games developers are using because TV companies and TV networks, they just can't get their head around our esports metrics, and we need to fall in line with legacy media. So it's complete bullshit. It's another grift. Just to underline it, we already have average minute audience. Average minute audience is calculated. It's basically the average number of people watching at any minute of a broadcast. We have that. It's called average viewers. It's how we measure average viewership in esports. But we also have a bunch of other metrics, right? But what's super important for the Overwatch League, for games developers in question, is if you can distill your success down to one number, and therefore it's only one number to think about, only one number to massage, one number that you can inject Chinese bullshit into with their streaming numbers, absolutely perfect. You can always ensure that you pump up those numbers. Some people thought I was saying that AMA was something new. No, what I meant by this was it's definitely new that we distill everything down to one number, and developers are loving that. It's also a grift in the sense that it's run by Nielsen, who do the TV ratings. They've been wanting to get into esports for a long, long time. They work with some of the biggest grifters and charlatans I've ever seen in the space to secure that, and what they do is they're trying to make it look like they're relevant to our interests. Of course, they're not relevant to our interests. It's legacy media. They need to come to us. They need to borrow our ideas. Have you noticed how during the pandemic, all your favorite TV shows now are doing like little webcam streams and all stuff like this? Yeah, we were actually ahead of the curve. So this number we already have, but it's important that we don't just judge success by one number, because there are multiple metrics that you need to consider when looking at whether or not a broadcast is successful or not. And you can see Esports Charts replied to me and said, actually, it's down 19% by average minute audience year on year if you exclude the Chinese platforms and only YouTube viewers, and down 41% by peak viewers on the grand finals. And Esports Charts are the definitive website for measuring all of this. We're going to come to those in a second, but let's just take a look a little bit at that headline that I alluded to. Esports Observer here put out this little infographic showing that definitively the viewership is up 38% year upon year. You can see the global grand finals, it's up 38%. Digital only, it's up 87%. China, average minute, it's up 260%. Wow. Well, look, I don't know how long you guys have been in esports, but I'd like to think you know a few universal things by this point. And one of these universal truths is that Chinese numbers are absolute bullshit. And very often, it's not even that they're bullshit, it's that people don't even understand certain things. Like certain streaming platforms, like in China extrapolate like crazy numbers. Like they say, 5 million people are watching, which when you look at the population seems like maybe it's a reasonable assertion. But then what they're doing is they're extrapolating it in their own way and inflating that number, and knowingly so, and they tell you how they're doing it. And then Western audiences and Western people that want to make it look like their product's growing, they take that number at face value and just drop it right in because that's the best thing for business, right? The reality is that you have to be hugely skeptical of numbers in China. There's so much botting going on. Platforms are very opaque. They don't share how they arrive at these numbers often. They're nonsense. They can't be trusted. Esports Charts discounts them for that reason. So this is their full breakdown of the 2020 playoff season, including, obviously, the grand finals. And you can see that, that headline of 38% growth sounds great, but these are not brilliant numbers at all. 183,000 peak viewers. Again, just to put that in a context at the time I'm recording this, the CIS division of the IEM New York CSGO event has had almost 200,000 peak viewers. And that's with like Na'Vi and Virtus.pro maybe being the only teams with big fan bases competing in that region. And some people are complaining that actually that number is low, and it comes at a time when, we're absolutely massively saturated with CSGO events. This is a peak viewership for your global finals. I'm sorry, it's not great. You have to look at the way they placed it as well. This was while League of Legends Worlds was going on. So it overlapped with that. Not smart, and the numbers didn't spike until the Worlds games had ended, proving that there is a little bit of overlap between League of Legends audiences. But, the League of Legends numbers, we're talking millions. Here, you're barely scraping 200,000. And your average viewers are down as well from last year to 92. And it was indeed the finals themselves that were the peak. And you can see prior to that, on the earlier days in the broadcast, it was just over 100 and things were declining. These numbers aren't great, and Esports Charts did a separate analysis that you can see here is called the Overwatch League, the disappointing third season. And just look at the direct comparisons between 2020 and 2019. Peak viewership, 183,000, like we just saw. In 2019, it was 318,000. Average viewers, 46,000. Well, fuck it, I'll round it up for you. 47,000. Meanwhile, average viewers last year, 121,000. Total hours watched, over 25 million in 2020, but it was 75 million in 2019. And this type of decline, sure, they moved to YouTube. I get it, but this does not bode well. This does not make it look like a sound investment, especially when the Call of Duty League metrics are trending upwards. All esports viewership metrics are trending upwards, and you are the only league that's not only declined, but declined massively. You can see here, the situation is much worse when it comes to average viewers. The indicator of the Overwatch League only reached 46,000 average viewers, which is a 61.4% decrease compared to the championship's previous season. English became the most popular language of the Overwatch League in 2020, accounting for 80% of the total broadcast hours watched. Korean was the tournament's second language of choice and brought it to a total of 11.7% of the overall indicator. This in itself should tell you some stories about the Chinese numbers. If the Korean broadcast is the second most popular, but it's the Chinese numbers that are somehow inflating your 38% year-upon-year increase, what's wrong with this picture? The game isn't as popular in China as other titles. I think it's behind even like PUBG in China. So this is not good. This is like far, far from good. There's a lot more details here. Talking about the quarantine. It shows comparison with the Call of Duty League as well. And you can see, look, This is the peak viewership during the quarantine period. Now, this was a super interesting graph to me because the assumption should be while people are cooped up indoors, they're going to watch more video game stuff. They're going to be gaming more. We're all like sat at home when we're not at work. We're not going out. We're not partying. So yeah, we do things like this. But look, at the start of quarantine, actually the viewership cratered. It hit its like lowest point, like down to 46.6, and then really struggled to get back up to it. I mean, you can see it was hovering around between 50 and 60,000 pretty much throughout the quarantine period. And, a lot of people have said, oh, well, the reason the league is suffering is because the quarantine fucked up the business model with the homestands because people couldn't go to live events. People aren't watching the games at home either at a time when everyone is watching esports. That graph is perhaps the most damning measurement, and it's great to see esports charts actually put something like that together. Very interesting. Now, if you don't trust my analysis, because I know a lot of you think I'm biased against the Overwatch League, I just think it's a terrible business model. I think it's doomed to fail. I mean, if that makes me biased, assessing it in that way, I don't know what to tell you. Most people, including many people who've invested in it now, think that way too, by the way. But yeah, you can see it wasn't just me. This was Inven Global, and a very respected esports journalist, Radislav Nidra Kolev, did an article called Behind the Rose-Tinted Viewership Records of the Overwatch League. And I won't read the whole thing here, but pretty much says what I'm telling you now about how AMA has been peddled by Nielsen. It creates the illusion of growth, and it points out why Chinese numbers have been reliable, and it also points out some of the dubious claims by Blizzard themselves. Like, for example, when Blizzard said the reason we've moved to AMA is because it can't be driven up by embedding, which of course is gibberish, and they continue to use embedding as a strategy anyway after moving to the AMA metric. And they said there, one of the things that's important to us is that we have a pure viewership metric. We want to count every fan who watched and did so credibly. Why the fuck are you using Chinese numbers then? If you want credible stuff, you cannot take numbers from China at all. Like, I mean, that is just a reality. Also, as well, and this is something that everyone seems to have forgotten about, like the drops. I get it. I'm not like saying you shouldn't use drops on your broadcast. CS:GO does it for the major. I'm sure League of Legends did it during Worlds. But the bottom line is, it's very clear to me that a percentage of people that are watching the Overwatch League purely to harvest the drops for the game is a much greater percentage than in those other games. It clearly is. And on top of that, they're including rebroadcast numbers in their final metrics about growth, which, that's like saying, including reruns, it's just not going to cut it for me. If you had a healthy product, you wouldn't need to do that. So, I mean, this is a great article. You can go and read it in your own time. I recommend that you do if you're interested in these things. But honestly, I think so far, what we need to be really thinking about is, like, what's the parachute plan for when this league goes under? I mean, at the end of the season, and maybe this is a topic for a separate video I'll cover, they've released a ton of players because these orgs aren't doing well. They're not keeping players on the books when they don't have to. There's no player union over there. The player representation over there is frankly disgraceful and seems to work more towards the franchises than the players themselves, and Activision Blizzard, of course, by extension. So what's going to happen? What happens when this craters? Because bad news, folks, the COVID measures, they're still going to be going through 2021. I mean, 2020's been a write-off. I think the first half of 2021 is going to be a write-off too. And then you have to start asking yourself, if you can't get the business model that you relied upon going, and that's what caused all the problems here in 2020 for you, moving forward, what's the plan? There's an election coming up. The results, we don't know which way that's going to go. We don't know what type of protections are going to be in for businesses, whether there'll be another round of PPP loans and stuff like that. And trust me, the franchises from Activision Blizzard used those to keep people on payroll. It's in all sorts of trouble. It's mind-blowing to me that they're manufacturing these headlines. 38% growth, it's all okay, guys. The investors must know the truth. I mean, misrepresenting the league this way to sponsors and investors is grotesquely irresponsible. But most sensible people can see just on these metrics that the Overwatch League is unquestionably in trouble. And I think end of 2021, I think a few people are going to be probably vindicated. Just my thoughts. We'll have to wait and see. But whatever. Bottom line, you can't be using just one number that you can easily manipulate with Chinese viewers to pretend everything's okay. You can't pull the wool over people's eyes like that, not in esports. Anyway, there you go. Follow me on all of this stuff. Hope you enjoyed this rant, and I'll see you on the next video. Until then, take care.